There is a camera bolted inside the footwell of the number 88 Chevrolet. What it records has become one of the most discussed technical mysteries in the NASCAR Cup Series garage. Joey Logano attempted the same technique at Watkins Glen and abandoned it inside one practice session. Austin Cindric traveled all the way to Adelaide to study it in person and still could not execute it under race pressure. Ross Chastain, teammate to the driver in question, admitted, "My feet are on the wrong pedals when I do it his way." The question at the center of this is simple. What exactly is Shane Van Gisbergen doing with 3 pedals in a car that was only ever designed to need 2? To understand why this matters, it helps to look at how the next-gen car normally operates. Since its introduction in 2022, the car has used a 5-speed sequential gearbox, which means gear changes do not require a clutch. Drivers shift up and down, and the dog box handles the mechanical work. Under this design, the clutch pedal exists only for pulling away from pit road and for the green flag start. After that point, it functions as nothing more than a footrest. This is why every established American driver in the field, Hamlin, Larson, Byron, Bell, drives with the left foot on the brake and the right foot on the throttle, never touching the clutch again once the race begins. That standard was unchallenged until Van Gisbergen's debut at Chicago in 2023, a rain-soaked street course race that he won while using a heel-and-toe technique that nobody else in the field was applying. The origin of that technique traces back to Supercars, the Australian series where Van Gisbergen built his career before arriving in NASCAR. Supercars vehicles run a locked rear differential, meaning the rear wheels are mechanically tied together. Under braking, this causes the rear tires to hop and lock up because they are forced to rotate at the same speed even through a turn. To manage this, Supercars drivers run a significantly heavier rear brake bias than any NASCAR setup would tolerate. The solution to keeping a locked rear axle from breaking loose under that bias is to feather the clutch, dipping it in to disconnect the engine from the rear wheels for a fraction of a second at the apex, then releasing it as the car turns in, allowing the drivetrain to reload and help rotate the nose into the corner. This is the exact mechanical principle Van Gisbergen carried into NASCAR, built over a career that includes 3 Bathurst 1000 wins and 3 Supercars championships. What makes the situation more complicated is what Van Gisbergen himself has said about it. Speaking on the Dale Jr. Download with Dale Earnhardt Jr., he explained that the differential in the next-gen car is open, not locked, meaning the clutch technique is not technically required to make the car turn. He has stated that people overthink the habit, yet SMT telemetry data, which every team in the garage has access to, shows that he continues to use the technique consistently. The explanation is not smoother shifting. The real benefit is tire preservation. The brief disconnection between engine and rear axle reduces the load placed on the rear tires during braking and turn-in, even in a car where the mechanical necessity for it no longer exists. That tire preservation effect has been noticed by his closest competitors. Connor Zilisch, the rookie at Trackhouse who has challenged him most directly, said, "You never see SVG slipping the rear tires out of turn 6 at the Glen. While other drivers run wide open through that corner, Van Gisbergen is not at full throttle, and he is not pushing the car beyond what the tire can sustain." The result shows up later in a run. As other cars' rear tires degrade, his remain capable of sustaining pace, allowing him to capitalize in the closing laps of a long green flag stint. This gap is not a matter of the technique being secret. Denny Hamlin has publicly acknowledged that he was taught heel and toe braking earlier in his career, including a win at Mexico City using right foot braking. But he has driven with left foot braking for 2 decades, and he has stated plainly that going back is not an option for him. Kyle Larson, widely regarded as one of the most versatile drivers in the field, has said that if Van Gisbergen figures out the ovals, he will be dominant. The barrier here is not a lack of knowledge. Every team has the telemetry. The barrier is years of muscle memory built around a different braking method, one that cannot be rewritten under race conditions regardless of how clearly the data is understood. The results from the 2025 season reflect how significant this technique has become on road courses. Van Gisbergen won 5 of the 6 road course races on the schedule that year: Charlotte Roval, Watkins Glen, Mexico City, Sonoma, and Chicago. That run of results moved him to third on the all-time NASCAR road course win list, a ranking built in a fraction of the time most drivers on that list required. The more pressing question is whether the same technique can translate to short ovals such as Martinsville, Richmond, and Phoenix, where corner entry and long-run tire management often decide the outcome of a race. Van Gisbergen recorded his first oval top, 1-0 finish at Kansas in 2025 and followed it the very next weekend with a Roval win, a progression that has not gone unnoticed inside race shops. Because of this trajectory, there have reportedly been internal discussions about whether the clutch usage falls outside the intended design of the next-gen car, given that the pedal was built solely to launch the car before becoming inactive. Some of these conversations have reportedly touched on whether NASCAR could introduce clutch pedal lockouts after launch, a regulatory step that other racing series have implemented in different forms. At the center of this entire technical discussion is a 6-year-old driver from Auckland, a 3-time Bathurst 1000 winner and 3-time Supercars champion, who now competes for Trackhouse Racing in the number 88 Chevrolet. Joey Logano has been unable to replicate his footwork. Austin Cindric traveled internationally to study it and still could not reproduce it. Ross Chastain, sharing a race shop with him, has openly admitted his own feet will not cooperate with the method. What remains unresolved is whether this is simply a skill gap that will close with time, or whether the next-gen car's clutch pedal has handed one driver a lasting advantage that the rest of the garage is still trying to understand.